Hey PC World fans, Keith here, and today we're going to jump right in with the Doomslayer and Doom Eternal, which just got its next generation upgrade featuring ray traced effects along with Nvidia's DLSS to give those RTX cards a significant boost. So sit back and relax while we go through the visual impact of ray traced reflections, DLSS settings, and of course, performance in Doom Eternal. Now we've been ripping and tearing through Doom Eternal for well over a year at this point, and it could have been longer had it not been delayed, but that's a whole different story. Today we're talking about the much anticipated, debated, and quite delayed next generation Doom Eternal experience, featuring ray trace reflections along with DLSS injections. Things were a bit hush-hush ahead of this, with not a peep until Computex 2021, where we got to see the first reveal trailer for it. Now that the updates have hit, we've been able to get our hands on it, with now knowing that the ray tracing features have been limited to ray trace reflections. But that's not to say that it isn't insanely impactful in the game itself. And no, this isn't an update to make everything shiny and chrome, as you often see claims of online. What we see happen in Doom Eternal is that every surface and texture is assigned a roughness level that dictates just how reflective or not that surface is. Concrete? Well, don't expect reflections unless there's pools of water or blood on it. And, well, you get the idea with that. See, windows and glass are given depth and clarity, where before they received large screen space reflective tendencies, resulting often in glass that you simply couldn't see through. Now, I was almost convinced at one point that the title was using full-blown emissive lighting, but it's really not. It's emissive textures on surfaces, so the effect is really good with that, and probably a whole lot less impactful on performance than emissive lighting would have been. Now I want to take our first venture into looking in the game in the Doomslayer's office, at least that's what I'm calling it, in his Fortress of Doom. This room actually makes showcasing the changes that occur with RT reflections quite stark. With it all off, everything looks just as, well, what we're used to seeing, with the windows transparent and a bit of screen space details reflected there in the edge. Now to the left, there's a small box. Without RT enabled, there's no data to work with, so there's no reflections. But enable RT, and now there's some off-screen details that can be resolved with that object, as well as the rest of the room and the windows. You see here it's a pretty big difference. Now moving on to the Scorched Earth, which is a bit different of an environment, we can see that not all scenes are massively impacted by the introduction of ray trace reflections in this title. Sometimes the effect is subtle and it turns to be a nice aha moment, like in this scene where when things seem to be not making much of an impact until you notice yourself in the reflection of the broken window. Now this doesn't just happen with traditional screen space reflections in this title, so it is relying on that ray traced reflections to make that happen. But let's see things in motion. After all, that's how Doom Eternal is best enjoyed. You're not going to do much standing about in this game, so to keep things consistent, we use the opening sequence of the Mars core level, and here we can see massive changes to the way that the game is presented. But at the same time, it's not distracting. Rather, it adds to the scene, with the floors reflecting correctly based on the smoothness of those surfaces. Objects around the facility are reflecting as well, and one of the nice little touches is the room reflecting into the monitors. It's a bit harder to see there, but it is there. Now towards the end of the scene, we get to see the reflections in the elevator are more accurate, where ray traced off scene uses unnecessary screen space details, while the RT reflection scene maintains a clear bottom and reflects accurately. But you also get a nice hint at the reflective nature of the weapons. Now on to DLSS. So Nvidia's deep learning super sampling technology has come quite a way since it was introduced way back when. And with Doom Eternal's update, we see its return. In Doom Eternal, you'll find 3 available options for settings. Missing is the now typical Ultra Performance option, but you'll only have access to quality, balanced, and performance. Now for this example, we went back and used the same scene that we were just looking at, but this time we're looking at DLSS impact from various states in motion, with the left of the screen staying native and the moving down the stack on the right starting with quality DLSS settings, which are quite nice from all accounts that I can find, and in the showing I have no qualms with recommending turning this option on, even if you're choosing not to engage the RT reflections just to push the frame rates even higher. Moving things to the balance setting starts to allow for pixel peeping toms to find Well, differences in the images. But at 4K, the DLSS algorithm has enough data to work with to resolve a convincing image. But you move things down to the performance metric, and this is where things start to be able to be spotted in the differences in the slower moving scenes like this. But move into actual gameplay, and you're going to find yourself hard pressed to notice a difference. But I still personally recommend quality as the option to play with. Now, all of that said, what about performance? All these bells and whistles surely do come at a cost, right? Well, you can bet they do. And it can be quite heavy at times, but thankfully the IdTech 7 engine is already a super fast and capable gaming engine, but it can be extremely memory intensive, which is something to really take into consideration when attempting to run this game full out. If you're trying to run this game at 1440p or greater, maxed out with Ultra Nightmare with a card having 8GB or lower of memory buffer, well, you're going to want to adjust the texture pool size to fit these cards. Now, we had to do this in order to test with the RTX 3070 with everything enabled at 1440p, and admittedly, I couldn't tell a difference in the image quality because of it. But after we look at these results, we'll circle back and touch on that to show you what happens if you let the texture pool swell past the VRAM buffer. Now, performance at 1440p with the latest of both parties shows a very even result across the board. Both GeForce RTX 30 series cards in use here are showcasing very similar performance to the Radeon RX 6000 series cards, but things do change a bit when you add in ray trace reflections, with the RTX cards taking about a 30% performance hit, while the RX 6000 series takes a closer to 50% performance hit. Of course, the RTX cards benefit from the inclusion of DLSS, and we see a large portion of the performance regained by running the quality preset. At 4K, we found the lower tier cards better suited to stay in the 1440p category, so the RTX 3080 and RX 6800 XT head off here with expected performance gaps in traditional rasterized portions of the game, but turn on ray tracing and the RTX 3080 holds about a 46% performance lead over the 6800 XT, and it pushes even closer to that 80% mark when DLSS quality mode is enabled. Now, that's not to say that the RX 6800 XT is a slouch, and you should certainly enjoy Doom Eternal maxed out at 4K with high frames, and that's a testament to the IdTech 7 engine for sure. Now, a quick touch on DLSS. You can see here with the graph on screen, quite big performance gains can be had by utilizing DLSS in this title. In fact, whenever you utilize the performance at 4K, you're pretty much regaining all of the performance that you had with ray tracing disabled. So take it for what you will. You probably would want to enable it and crank it all up. Now, just remember, if you don't run ray tracing, you can utilize DLSS to push the frame rates even higher. But let's back up and let's talk about something really important now. What happens when you leave the texture pool alone and you're running an 8GB or less graphics card? And, well, thing is, it's not pretty. So if you were to leave the setting alone with the RTX 3070, you'll find yourself running down from 200 FPS to less than 30 by enabling ray tracing. Now, move it to just Nightmare and you'll triple your performance to 89 FPS and double it again by moving to Ultra. So we definitely can advise perhaps you want to look at doing that if you're running a card that has 8GB. And you have to remember the 2080 Super, 2080, 2070 Super, and the 2070 and the 2060 Super all have 8GB of VRAM. And the 2060, just the 2060, has 6 gigs. So this is a definite setting that you're going to want to pay attention to. Now, I would also challenge you to see if you can spot a difference in image quality when doing so. Admittedly, this only creates a positive impact if your card is short on VRAM for the Ultra Nightmare settings. So there you have it, folks. There's the roundabout of Doom Eternal Next Gen update and how ray tracing reflections add to the game's already gorgeous yet unnerving scenery. How DLSS can help NVIDIA RTX users claw back some of that lost performance when enabling ray tracing, and an idea of how the game performs with these new features even if you're running a Radeon RX 6000 series graphics cards. Not to mention how to handle things if you're getting pounded by VRAM requirements and are sitting on 8GB of VRAM or less at 1440p gaming, and still have an otherwise more than capable graphics card. Well, folks, that's it for this video. Let me and the other viewers know how your experience has gone with Doom Eternal and its latest update. Are you still playing it, or are you planning to look and getting back into the action? Leave a like if you found this video entertaining or enjoyable, and be sure to subscribe here at PC World for more PC content.